Welcome to Reco12. My name is Lisa S. and I have the disease of alcoholism. We begin with a moment's silence for the still suffering addict inside and outside these Zoom rooms, followed by the wee version of the set-aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside anything we think we know about ourselves, about our disease, about the big book, the 12 steps of program, the fellowship, the people in the fellowship, and all spiritual terms, especially you, God, so that we may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help us to see the truth. We surrender this next hour to you. Your will, not ours, be done. So I'm very blessed to be the host of this meeting and podcast that is the Afro-Euro time zones. I hope that you will join us and draw strength and hope from these podcasts that we host every Friday at 12 p.m. UK time and 2 p.m. European and South African time. Reco12 is an organisation with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others. Speakers from our past meetings have represented many fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. And I hope you'll reach out if you think your experience, strength, and hope will benefit this special community. Today's speaker is Jimmy S., who'll be speaking for around 30 minutes. We'll get him to do his share, followed by questions and answers afterwards. For a bit of business, the Reco12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and has more and more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. Reco12 shares are all the recordings are on the Reco12 website and a couple of other super exciting projects, one of which is the Big Book Roundtable discussion, where a few members, Nikki M, David G, and Justin B, just go through line by line of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Tradition 7, Reco12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our step 12 in this manner. We gratefully accept one-time contributions through PayPal, Venmo, and Wise through the links, which I'll pop in the chat. And also, again, on the Reco12 website. We also offer a monthly subscription program called Reco12 Spearheads. To join in and help support these cool projects, please consider donating at www.reco12.com/support, or again, click on the link during the live meeting in the chat. We look forward each meeting to growing deeper in effectiveness and understanding as we learn from and with our special speakers. So it is with great pleasure that I'm going to hand over now to Jimmy, who's going to be talking around step 12 work. Over to you, Jimmy. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. My name's Jimmy. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is the 8th of February 1987. I got sober in Ireland, where I lived, where I was born and lived. I went to AA initially to steal something with AA written on it, because I didn't go there to stop drinking. I went there to prove to my wife that, yeah, this time I'm serious, I'm not just saying I'm going to stop, I'm going to do something, but it was all a ruse, I was going to stop until she came back again to live with me, or until the trouble was over, or whatever it was. So my intention was to find some leaflet with AA written on it, so I could go home and tell her I had my story prepared. There are a lot of people there who drink too much and they want to tell me how I should live my life. So I had my story all prepared, and I went to the location where the meeting was advertised, and it was actually in the insane asylum in Portlaoise in Ireland. And I was afraid to ask anybody, where's the AA meeting, in case they would think I was an alcoholic. So I walked around in the madhouse in Portlaoise, listening at doors to see could I hear anybody talking about AA. And after searching or going around for a while, I met somebody with a white coat and a stethoscope. So I thought, I can ask this guy, so where's the AA meeting? So he said, it's in room whichever on the second floor. So I went there, and there was a notice on the door which said, the meeting has been moved to behind the parochial house in the city or in the town centre. So I stood there with a dilemma, what am I going to do now? Am I going to go there or not? But I eventually thought I really have to get this proof that I've been there. So I went to a meeting and walked in up the stairs and in the door. There were about 40 people facing from the door to the front of the room where two guys were sitting, one of whom was telling his story. And I looked around, and all the literature was up beside these two guys at the front, so I didn't have an opportunity to pick up something and leave. So I sat down, and while I was listening, the guy telling his story, he said, he spoke about the morning after the night before, terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. And something clicked in my head, which said to me at the time, Jesus, Jimmy, the only problem you have is you're an alcoholic, You don't drink because you have 100 problems, You have 100 problems because you drink. So from that time, that I haven't had a drink since I went to that meeting in Portlaoise in 1987. In the meantime, I've moved to the Netherlands after 2 years in sobriety. Came here and they were doing it all wrong. Of course, all these Americans were having mountain climbing meetings and barbecues and all sorts of stuff. I was used to meetings in Ireland where we went in the back door of church halls and different things. It was really anonymous at the time. And I went back and I told my sponsor, I said, they're doing it all wrong there. I don't know if it's going to work for me. He said, anybody sober? I said, yeah, there's quite a few people sober. I said, the meetings of 30 or 40 people every Saturday evening. He said, are they sober long? I said, some of those people are 20, 25 years sober. He said, they must be doing some effing thing right, So I came back to Holland, and I've been going to meetings in Holland ever since. My home group is the International English-speaking AA group in Breda in Holland, which started on the 1st of June 1990 with 4 people, and now every Friday we have 40 to 50 people at that English-speaking meeting. So, yeah, this thing works, that's what I know. And when Lisa asked me about a topic, and I don't know where the idea came from, but what came up in my mind was 12-step work. And what that means, what it means for me, and what do I see as 12-step work? And of course, my 12-step work has changed over the years from the beginning when I was brought along, where I sat at night in somebody's house who was in the shakes and having the horrors, and stayed there until other people came the next morning to stay with the guy again, bringing people to treatment centres and dropping them off, and then they were home before me again and that type of stuff, At that time, I thought the only way to do it is the way I do it, and what I do, and if you don't do that, you're not going to get sober. But I've discovered in the meantime, that there are many roads to Rome, as they say, that we all follow these suggested steps in our own particular ways. They apply to us in our lives and our culture or whatever. I went to AA meetings in Ireland, which I thought were Irish Catholic AA, and I went to AA meetings in Houston, Texas, where I thought they were Southern Baptist AA. And I went to Dutch language AA meetings here in Holland, where I thought AA was a Calvinistic sort of AA, where it was influenced by the culture where the meetings were taking place. And that works, wherever it is. It works for the particular cultures where people live. In fact, for me, the main thing was talking about the principles enshrined in the steps, What are those principles, We talk about honesty and hope and faith and charity and the various principles assigned to each of the steps. And when we get to step 12 then, and to pass on the message to other alcoholics, but to practice these principles in all our affairs. And the message we pass on, it's not always the same either. I mean, if I'm dealing with people, passing the message or sharing my experience with people who are new to the fellowship, I have a very basic message, It's don't drink and go to meetings, at the very beginning. That's what I emphasize for people who are new to the program, And give it a chance, I always say, try it for a month or 6 weeks, and if it doesn't work, you can always go back drinking again, it's nothing for you. And over a period of time then, when I have sponsees and people who are longer in recovery, what I have to offer again is my own experience. What it was like for me in the beginning, it was go to meetings, don't drink and go to meetings. And then it developed into working my way through the steps with a sponsor, And my emphasis on each of the steps has to do with the principle enshrined, and as it says in how it works at the beginning, it was pointed out to me that honesty is mentioned 3 times in the first paragraph of how it works, So how important it is for me as a recovering alcoholic to have honesty, And it was also emphasized at the time in the beginning, it wasn't about cash register honesty, It was about being honest with myself, because my alcoholic brain was capable of lying to me or leading me along the wrong path, And I think my head still works in the same way, If something is good for me and is productive for me and can improve the quality of my life, my head is inclined to tell me, maybe you can do that tomorrow or the next day, or leave it, Jimmy. It's not that important to do it now. And if something is bad for me and from my recovery and the quality of my life, my head tells me, maybe once is okay, maybe it's okay to try it, or it mightn't really be that bad. So I have to be constantly focused on recognizing that my head is out to get me, and it still is, and know that I have to really be honest with myself in all areas, Also, when I think about the 12-step, it's always important to know, what am I actually passing on to people, What have I to offer as a recovering alcoholic? Initially, it's how it was, what happened, and what it's like now. And I think the most important part for me at the moment, the message I have is, what's it like now, How do I live? How do I practice the second part of the 12-step, Try to practice these principles in all my affairs, When I worked in my work, how I worked using these principles, how I live with my family, how the contact I have with my neighbors, how I behave on a daily basis, living my life, and that's what's important to me. I'll have to say I've had experiences where I didn't practice these principles in all my affairs. So I wasn't a very good example for other people. I could talk the talk, but I wasn't actually walking the walk. I continue to be self-centered at times and arrogant and could easily get angry. And I mean, that's when I wasn't aware of the fact that I needed to practice these principles in every part of every day, It's so easy to go to meetings and to come to a meeting like this and rhyme off everything about these 12 steps and about how we practice them and quote from the big book and do all that stuff, It's all memory stuff, If I was good at school, I could do the same thing, I could do exams and write down and pass exams with honors or whatever, Well, if my recovery was based on my memory and how much I could quote from the big book and how I could write stories about how you should do things, I'd pass with the honours as well, But the real test of recovery for me in my 12-step work is the second half of the 12-step, where I ask my wife how well I am, This year I'm 50 years married to the same lady who was leaving me when I went to my first meeting, This year in August we're going to celebrate 50 years of marriage. And we're going to have a party, and we'll have family and friends visiting from home in Ireland and family and friends from here and from the fellowship, And that connection with other people. When I was home for the funeral last week, and my uncle's daughter-in-law, a Japanese lady, I don't know if she knows I'm in AA or not. It didn't really matter, but I was speaking to her at some stage. And she emphasized for me the importance of connection, because we were there with family from all parts of the world. And that connection that we felt with each other and how nice it was, I think that's one of the greatest benefits of recovery and of this program. We were able to make connection with people, because before AA, I had no connection with anybody, My wife, I met her when I was 14 years of age, We got engaged when we were 18 and married when we were 20. And I got sober when we were 33. But during those initial years, we didn't have a connection as such, you know. We didn't have any type of an emotional or mental connection. I'd go so far as to say I didn't even know what love was at that time, you know. That I've learned through this fellowship what love is, you know, how it is to love somebody and recognize how it is to be loved by somebody else, you know. And these are things that I've learned in AA, which for me in the course of my recovery have become so important. These are not things that I share with newcomers and overwhelm them with this type of stuff, you know. But I do share it with my sponsees later on, you know, about how I have learned to love and how I've learned to allow myself to be loved, to recognize that love. I stayed with my son when I was home in Ireland. He's also a recovering addict. And he and I have very similar characters. So for many years we have had many conflicts, you know. We argue and we parted on arguing terms, you know, and anger. And I've just spent a week with him of the most loving time. I said it to my wife when I came back, how beautiful it was to spend a week with my son, where we could both show our love for each other, you know, where we could both feel it, you know. And that for me, these are the gifts and how life is, you know, to recognize that I'm a human being, you know. My alcoholism had me, I was like a mummy wrapped up in bandages and all. You couldn't, I was inside that I was wrapped up and blocked off from everything. And Alcoholics Anonymous and these 12 steps have removed all that outer layer that was preventing me from making connection or contact with people. Again, as I say, my example, my 12-step work today is living my life according to these principles, you know. I don't go around telling people I'm in recovery unless there is a purpose to do that, you know. I don't tell people, it's not, in the beginning, I used it as sort of a badge, you know, because people thought it was great. Oh, you're great, Jimmy, you know, you're sober and you're not drinking, you're an alcoholic, you're wonderful, you know. And I loved all that praise at the time, you know, given my big head was able to absorb that and like that. But today I don't have to do that, you know. The only time that I would divulge my membership of AA was when I thought it might help somebody, if there was somebody in front of me who needed help. And sometimes it's not the alcoholic. Sometimes it's the family of the alcoholic. Sometimes it's I don't know what it is, but sometimes I can look at children and I see something about their expression, about how they are. I think to myself, my God, I think there's an addict in the family of that child, you know, because I recognize how it was for my children. I didn't see it at the time, but now I see these things. I sometimes see the nervousness in partners of addicts, you know, how they are and how my wife used to be, you know, how she used to have to cover up for my behavior and how she always put on a smile and told the rest of my family, you know, made excuses for me and phoned my work and made excuses for me and did all those things, you know. And sometimes today I recognize those things and I know that I'm in a position maybe to help people like that. And I don't say you have to do this or you have to do that. I talk about myself, you know. I talk about how I am, how my life is, how my alcoholism has affected me and the people around me, you know. When I was drinking, I used to think I'm married to the wrong woman. I have 3 children who are a nuisance, and I'm living in the wrong village, and I'm in the wrong country, and the wrong political party. The whole world was wrong. All these problems I had, you know. And I've discovered, you know, when the problems are me, you know, and how I react to situations, you know, what my first thought is. You know, I love that slogan we have, think, you know, because my first thought got me into so much trouble when I was still drinking, you know, and still can do. My first thought today is quite often something that will lead me to more difficulty, either for myself or for other people, you know. I came back yesterday and during the discussion with my wife, it was lovely to see her, you know, and feel the warmth of being together again. But then she shared some experience with me or something she had done or didn't do, you know. My first thought is, why didn't you do it this way, or you should have done that, you know. And I have learned to keep my mouth shut, you know, not to spoil the moment and spoil the opportunity I have to feel love and to feel the warmth and companionship of another human being, because that's what I used to do. I'd open my mouth and I'd steal an opportunity for happiness from myself and from other people. So today, I've learned not to do that, And it's not all the time. I'm no saint, I do these things, but I've also learned how to make amends for these mistakes that I make, to really ask for God's help on a daily basis, I'm not. I go through periods of meditation, where I meditate for quite a long time, and then my circumstances change in some way. I'm on vacation and I don't have the same routine and things, and I miss my meditation. And then as time goes by, I find it hard sometimes to pick it up again, And as regards prayer has never been for me a long, drawn-out process, Prayer for me are very short moments in the morning, during the day, when I need it, or in the evening time before I go to bed. I think the length of any time I pray would be mostly for 3 or 4 minutes, maybe, Because in my childhood, we prayed for hours, We got on our knees in the kitchen floor after the Angelus in the evening, and we said the rosary and we prayed. And all these things that seemed to be pushed on me are compulsive, and we had to go to churches and we had to go to confessions. We had to do so much. But today, my mum used to say to me when I came here, Jimmy, you're not going to Mass anymore. What's that? Do you not go to church or whatever? And I said to her, Ma, to tell you the truth, I said, I've cut out the middleman. I talk to the boss all the time now, And that chat with the boss is very short and very, very easy going, It's sharing and listening also, And it works, I don't know how many times a day I say, thank you, God, because of the benefits and the positive things that happen in my life. And because of the times where I don't react and open my mouth with the first thought that comes, I say, thank you, God. Yesterday, I was booking in for a flight from Ireland to Holland, And of course, I can buy a seat, and they went from 15 euros to 25 euros for a seat. And I said, no, I'm not going to bother, I'm going to just sit wherever they put me in. And they put me up at the front in an aisle seat, just what I would pay 20 euros for anyway. So in case of I just say, thank you, God, and that's it. And who God is or what God is, I don't know. For me, God is a warm, loving feeling. I have an example. Many years ago, I can't remember what the difficulty was in my life, but I was seriously asking for help, and I was praying, I was on my knees beside my bed in the morning. Please help me, God. And at a certain moment, I got this wonderful, warm feeling of, and I thought that it's going to be okay, Jimmy, it's going to be okay. And it reminded me of when I was very young, my father used to work shift work. And I'd be in my bed at night, and the curtains would be open on a whole sort of frosty night, and I'd look out and I'd see the moon and the stars, and my head, how far away is that moon, and how far away are those stars, and what's on the other side of that, My head would be, I couldn't sleep, And then when my father would come home, I'd pretend I was asleep, and he'd walk into my bedroom, and he'd pull the blankets up around, and he'd tuck them in at my back, and he'd give me a kiss on my cheek. And I used to have this wonderful, warm feeling of being taken care of and loved and protected, And that's what God is for me today, that same feeling of being loved, being warm, being protected, being okay, that it's okay, whatever is happening, So yeah, these are the messages I have in this is my 12-step. This is what I have to share about my experience, And as I say, over the period of time, it changes, and I have different experiences at different times. But my basic message all the time for newcomers is, don't drink and go to meetings, So that's it. Thank you for having me, Lisa. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Jimmy. I love what you said about wrap like a mummy with the bandages around. And it's a lot of people say about the onions, don't they? And it's like pulling off the layers. I've never heard that with the mummy thing. So I love that. If anyone wants to come in and ask Jimmy a question, you can raise your hand and come in, or you can pop it in the chat if you want to be anonymous. For myself, Jimmy, when you said the whole God idea, when you first coming in, 1989, when you first went to your first meeting, and when you said about the God idea, and you said also about your childhood with going to mass and with the Rosemaries, did you struggle with that when you first come in because of the whole? Did you have prejudice against the God idea at the beginning, Jimmy, or was it? What did that look like?
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Reco12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, I think in the beginning I did. I remember seeing on the front of the table at my first meeting, "But for the grace of God," and some of the slogans which mentioned God. And my first thought was, before I had my spiritual awakening of the morning after the night before, I was thinking another one of these effing God things, you know. That's what was in my head at the time. And in the early recovery, I mean, people stress the point that God as we understand Him, you know. And for me at the time, my God was the AA group, you know, was the people I was going to almost every day, and that for me was and the people within AA were my higher power, you know, that they could do something I couldn't do. And that developed into a thought, because I was an electrician at the time and involved with communications and stuff, and I thought, okay, so these people are my higher power, you know. But I used to see them as a type of a telephone cable or something, you know, and I used to think, well, where does the message come from at the other end of this line, you know? So I eventually came to believe that there is a God, as I choose to call it, then at the other end of the line, which passes messages through AA to me, and through prayer and through meditation, that I get these messages. What it looks like or anything else, I don't know, but it's, as I say, it's that feeling I get of being cared for and loved.
Yeah. And did you break away from that religion? Do you do the religion and the program, or did you just break away from the religion?
I think initially I paid lip service to the religion as such, that I continued to go to church, because of course I was very worried about what other people thought about me, and always had been. So on the outside, I continued to go to mass in the morning and brought my children, and if they were tittering or giggling, I gave them a slap in the ear as well to quieten them. That had happened to me, you know, did all the things I thought was expected of me. But then at a certain point in my early recovery, there was a pope who lasted for 2 or 3 days in Rome. He died after 2 or 3 days of being the pope, and I read something about that, where there were speculations that he had been killed because he wasn't willing to take part in whitewashing money and all these sort of things. So it gave me the excuses I needed to say I don't have anything to do with that stuff anymore, you know? But I have to say, while I don't actively take part in the church, I do visit churches on a regular basis, you know. I have a 3-year-old grandson whom I take for a walk every Tuesday morning, and we go to a church in the middle of the city and light a candle. He likes the sound, you know. It's a small church, so he likes the echo. He shouts and screams, you know. But I do get to feel the warmth of a connection with a higher power when I'm there. So yeah.
No. And you spoke a bit about step 11 with your prayer and meditation. Is that with your sort of daily practice, has that ever changed, Jimmy, or have you pretty much, you said you keep it, and I think I love what you say, because it can become very mechanical. We can pray for hours on end, but then walk out and be completely disconnected and go, well, for me. So it's important to be connected, and it's quality rather than quantity, isn't it? But has that ever has that evolved over time that you've how you do it now, or has it always been like that?
I have to say, prayer started for me when I was working with a sponsor back in Ireland, where he suggested I should pray. Step 3 was where I would start with prayer, and he said it to me, and so I tried that. So I tried lying on my back in bed, relaxed, with my arms behind my head and asking for help or whatever, as if there was nothing I had to do, only ask, And I was telling the sponsor, nothing is happening, I'm trying this prayer, but nothing's happening. He said, "Did you try it on your knees?" So I worked shift work myself at the time, and I came home in the morning, and my 2 older children, my wife brought them to school, and I had a 2-year-old boy whom I was looking after. He was playing with toys in his room, so I thought, this is an opportunity to try this prayer on my knees, and nobody can see me, or whatever. So I knelt down on my knees beside my bed, and I asked for help. I tried to pray as best I could, and after a few minutes, I went to stand up, and my 2-year-old boy was kneeling beside me. He had come in unknowns to me, and he was kneeling down beside me, and that did something for me at the time. I don't know what, but ever since then, my best moments of prayer are when I'm on my knees. At night or in the morning, I pray. I just get on my knees. And it's not every time that I make that contact with God as I understand Him, but at least I'm there, and I'm repeating the same thing over and over, and I know when I really need to feel that contact, that the automation of doing it every day gives me the opportunity to make the connection when I need to, and I feel it. At times I feel it when I came home last night, and I'm praying last night, and I'm thanking God for the day that I've had, and for being home again, and for the life I have, the life I've been given, and I feel that connection, and it comes. Yeah, I'm praying from my heart, I'm praying from my heart, which really feels good.
Yeah, and you spoke a bit about the prayer. What about so I guess people say we live in steps 10, 11, and 12. So what you spoke about 11 and 12. What does your step 10 mean to you? What does that look like for you, Jermaine?
Yeah, that's step 10 for me is it used to be, I think, I thought of it in black and white. It's at nighttime before I get into bed is step 10. And review my day and see how it has been, and recognize the things that are the pluses and the minuses, I guess. But I find it more, as I said when I was checking in for the flight, and I said, "Thank you, God, for seat 6D," or whatever it was, or when I'm sharp in my reply to somebody, where I can immediately see that and say, "Look, I'm sorry, I spoke in a harsh way. I know it's not right." I can. Step 10 can be a continuous process rather than a regulated particular time every evening or whatever. And on that same subject, I'm not somebody who writes a lot. I wrote my step 4 once, and I've written gratitude lists over periods of time, and I haven't written, I'm not a person who writes step 10 at the moment. A lot of people do, and I appreciate it. We all do things in our own way, but my step 10 is an action thing rather than a note or an agenda that I have to do something later. My step 10 for me is generally something I need to act on at the moment. And whether it's thanking God for the benefits or making amends for the negativeness that I've shown at that moment. And also on meditation, I wanted to say, for the first 10 years of my recovery, I didn't meditate. I didn't know about meditation, or I didn't know how to meditate. And I wanted to, and I had this impression at the time that meditation, I almost have to be floating on a carpet above the world, and that's meditation, But as it turned out, I at some stage, I've learned meditation was breathe in and breathe out. That's where my meditation was really begun, where I could really focus on myself and empty myself of the distractions of the world. focus on breathing in and out. And also, what I do today and how I meditate today is I open up YouTube and I look and I think 10-minute morning meditation or 20-minute morning meditation or whatever type. I just type in something and then I meditate. You know, I'm not somebody who, I don't have a set pattern. Or I worked for a period of time where I was asked to lead meditation sessions, you know, and I'm not great at it. All I can tell people is breathe in and breathe out, you know, talk like that. But it's fine, you know. We all have, this program is so wonderful. I always say it's so wide, you know, it's so wide. Once we stay between the barriers, we move in the same direction, you know. We don't all have to be in a single line straight down the middle of the road all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Jimmy. And like you with the step 10, for me, it's about being aware of my actions as I go through the day and you know, pausing and stopping before, you know, I open, like you said, with your wife, keeping that mouth shut or whatever. Zoom user, you had your hand up. Did you want to come in? The question? No. Yeah, and like you just said, Jimmy, it's so lovely with the, you know, you said you go on YouTube and listen to buried meditations, and it is so. I love that bit about, you know, proving the meditation. Yeah, come in, Zoom user.
Little delay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I've never shared in these meetings, but I've been listening. I guess for me lately, well, first of all, the quiet calmness of your voice listening this morning was meditative. For me, I think sometimes I really try to get my humor in for myself when I have a repeated situation and it's not what I'm not getting what I want. And then I just say, okay, you know, to my higher power, I see you. I see what you've put in front of me. And then I say, okay, I think, you know, I get to choose. What do I want to do with this? And then sometimes it'll come up again, you know, a same situation. So sometimes that just makes me laugh and take a pause and step back and say, well, there it goes again. You know, what am I going to do with this thought? Or so that seems to be helpful. And lately, I don't know, just like a little, I'm always outdoors and hiking, especially where I live. It is the season. And I've been making up excuses. So it seems like Catholic guilt, maybe. I don't know. I've worshipped in a lot of other different places, but you know, going to a place of worship, and I make flowers sometimes on Saturdays with the ladies for the church. But I've been choosing, to be in nature. I'm probably every day. It is my prayer meditation. A big outdoors girl, but I think just trying to give myself grace and say, as I just heard, you know, it's a daily, sometimes hourly, that I'm in contact, just talking to my higher power. And, you know, I'm just trying to tell myself, let that be enough. So I think that's all I have to say. I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we were just saying, wasn't it? It's so lovely because there's no one fits all with the prayer and meditation, especially meditation, and we can, you know, different people, you know, there's, what's that saying that I think is Mark Houston when he says it don't matter which donkey you're on as long as you get to the top, that, you know, but yeah, it's definitely for me meditation and like that lady just said with your voice, it's just that calmness. It's just calming because, you know, for me, my addict head, my alcoholic head is always, like you said, is the thinking the problem. So by slowing myself down, and again, like you said, Jimmy, we've not just, you know, throughout my day, not just meditating and then storming out then and being like the Tasmanian devil, to try and keep that that neutrality, you know, what they say, and they safe and protected, and pausing before I open my gob, or you know, responding in the wrong way. And you touched on you said you'd done your step 4 once, and so when you, like I suppose a nightly review, do you reflect on the day, Jimmy, and you know, without writing, and think, was I resentful, dishonest, and selfish and afraid, or and what does that look like for you?
Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Reco12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Reco12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Good question.
Yes, as you say, I look back on my day in the evening time, you know, and quite often, you know, I used to say when I was still drinking, and I used to have blackouts, and I couldn't remember my day, you know, those were terribly frightening, horrible things. Today, if I get on my knees in the evening time to pray, and I don't have, I have moments where I don't know, oh, what did I do today, or where was I today, or whatever, you know, I don't, it's not always that I have these clear memories of how it was. It's like if I drive from the city where I live to the next city. Quite often I don't remember what happened along the way or what I saw along the way, you know, so it means it was uneventful, or there weren't things that were important or highlights, you know. It's not that I have bad memory or anything. It's just that when I get on my knees at night, and if there are things that are highlights or low times during the day, I remember those things very easily, you know, and I'm aware of those things, and I'm grateful for the good times, and I'm aware that I have to behave differently, or I have to make amends, or whatever, you know. I'm aware of the negativeness that has taken place during the day. But if sometimes there are more things depending on the circumstances of where I've been and who I've come into contact and all that. And other days, I have very quiet days where I don't have contact with a lot of people, where I don't have a lot of activities, you know, where I'm focused on some doing something at home, hanging up curtains, or I don't know, doing something, you know, where days are easy, where there are not a lot of things that I have to highlight as regards, was it being afraid or self-centered, or these negative things about myself.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? I think that's like me when I smile then, because when I'm, you know, got a day at home and I've got nobody in the house, and I haven't got no chance to. But it's, yeah, when I'm out and about, that's when I loved how you kept, you know, stressing about the practice of the principles in all your affairs, because it's so true. I can sit here and be so pleasant to you guys, but then if I walk out the door and start cussing everyone and being a prize idiot, then that's not in all my affairs. And I love what you said about the lip service. You know, we can speak it and sound great, but am I actually practicing it? It's a really good reminder for me. And it's, you know, I love that, because it says then it's the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. And all means all, when everything means everything. We can't just pick and choose when we want to be kind and tolerant and patient and all them things, I guess.
Go on. I just wanted to say before we finish, I had a wonderful sponsor in early recovery back in Ireland, And he was a very practical sponsor. He was the person who told me a smile is contagious. You know that if I smile, people smile back. And he showed me that practically walking down the street in Galway many years ago. He says, watch the people coming, Jimmy. I didn't know what he was on about. And they were smiling, you know. And I turned around and he's smiling at them, you know. And he also told on the same trip to a convention in Galway, we were in a restaurant and it was quite busy, you know, but he called the waitress by her first name, you know, because she had a badge. Yesterday, when I was getting off the aeroplane in Schiphol in Amsterdam, I generally say thank you to the staff, but these hostesses had a badge, and I was able to say, thank you, Petra. And to see the reaction when you mention her name, you know, how comforting that is. I like when people call me by my name. You know, there's something about it that's quite nice, you know. So these practical things are so valuable for me in recovery. He also told me it's laughter we're after, because he said we've been sad and miserable for long enough in our lives, you know. It's laughter we're after, and this real belly laughter, you know, and not just laughing because somebody else is laughing, you know. So these practical things were so important for me in early recovery, these messages. Yeah.
Oh, I totally agree, Jimmy. And, you know, actions speak louder than words, and it is that these little things and the keeping it simple is so important. Them little things that are so easy to do, to smile. And you know, I've had it myself, you know, being here at the moment, and just by smiling and being friendly and such. I love that, you know, law of attraction. If you're giving out what you receive, as if within, so without. And it's so true. Being just smiley and friendly and taking that couple seconds to look at, like you said, the lady's badge on the aeroplane, and you know, it does make such a difference. It really does. And yeah, like you say, Jimmy, I didn't get sober to be a miserable person. I was going to swear that I thought I'm best not a miserable person. I've got sober so that I can be happy and joyous and free. That's what it's all about, isn't it? You know, it's so true, and I love that. You're a real inspiration, Jimmy. If you had if anyone listening to this podcast, you know, in the future, if they're just listening, or even now, if anyone's struggling or new and you know, really unsure about things, what would your advice be with all these years of experience?
I think, as I said at the very beginning, the one thing we need to do is to be honest with ourselves, you know, to recognize. Somebody in my early recovery used to say, my head is out to get me. And that was true, you know, and it can still be true today, because my head tells me things that are damaging to me, you know. And to be able to be honest with myself and recognize those things. It's like I have class 2 diabetes or something, you know. So and I have a sweet tooth. I love chocolates and sweets and all the rest of it, you know. And my head will tell me that's okay, you know. And I stop using sugars and sweetness for long times, and I can motivate myself, and then again my head can get to me and say, you know, it'll be all right just to have a few biscuits this time or something, you know. And these are the things that my head continuously tells me. So I have to be honest with myself, you know, and find the motivation. It's so important to have the correct motivation for maintaining sobriety and recovery, you know, whatever it might be. I have young grandsons, and I'm 70 years of age. I have grandsons who are 3 years of age and 1 year of age. They live here close by. And I want to be a part of their lives for as long as I can be, because it gives me so much pleasure, you know. The pleasure I get from spending time with my loved ones and those young boys is wonderful. And I don't want to be the cause of my own early death. And that can be by drinking again, or that can be by overindulging in whatever is bad for my body, you know. So these are things, the motivation. And I think in early recovery, it's to get the correct motivation, you know, to be honest with ourselves and get the correct. Find something that motivates us, you know, whatever it may be, different for everybody, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Jimmy. So it was such a great meeting for all addicts and their loved ones. And if we didn't get to any questions, or if you have any questions, anyone listening to this podcast, please consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to reco12pod@gmail.com. And you can join in our community there and ask those questions. If you would like to be a future speaker on Reco 12 Afro-Euro, please send an email to reco12pod@gmail.com again. Same email address there, guys. If you have not yet rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please go do so now. And we invite you all back next week with another great speaker. So back over to you, Jimmy, for one last bit of service. To lead us out on a prayer of your choice, my love. Come on in.
Thank you. Yes, I quite like to finish with the serenity prayer, please. So, God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you.
So there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Stick and stay, guys. And when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it, you are worth it.